Hello and welcome to Hard Copy from our channel's television studios in Abuja. I'm Kayla Megwa. When government officials speak, their words don't simply make headlines. They set the tone, shape perceptions, and sometimes give cover to the actions of those who believe power is the prize and anything goes in the race to grab it. And when civil society raises an alarm over such statements, perhaps we should listen. Because when authority speaks, people listen. And when authority appears to give legitimacy to questionable conduct, the consequences can go far beyond the sound bites. I'll give you an example. Dr. John Momo of Channels Television once said, "We can forgive mistakes. What we cannot forgive is not trying at all." And that philosophy is about trying. But politics has its own philosophy, winning at all costs. And just a side note here, when John Momo made that statement, it killed in all of us the fear of trying. So when the president says all is fair in politics, the question is, how far is fair? And what point does fair become foul? Because if everything is fair in politics, does that mean the ballot box becomes a bargaining box? Does democracy become a marketplace where the highest bidder buys the lowest vote? We have seen poverty weaponized at the ballot box, where a pot of porridge is offered in exchange for a birthright, a meal today, a mandate for tomorrow. We have seen insecurity push citizens away from polling units, creating the perfect conditions for political actors to fill the vacuum left by frightened voters. And when citizens stay away, democracy doesn't necessarily stay neutral. Apathy can become the ally of electoral manipulation. So as we approach another crucial electoral season, are we preparing for an election or preparing for another political contest where the rules are interpreted according to who holds the power? Will our votes count, or will the votes be counted only after the deals have been done? Will the ballot be stronger than the bullet? Will the voter be more powerful than the vote buyer? Will democracy be allowed to speak, or will money, muscle, and manipulation do the talking? Because democracy cannot be all is fair if the playing field is tilted, the referees compromised, and some players already changing the rules. Democracy, politics, governance, and our very heated polity are our focus tonight on Hard Copy with the man I call the Oracle, journalist, public affairs analyst, and freelance writer, Majeed Dahiru. Mr. Majeed Dahiru, welcome again to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much for having me.
I've been asking every guest since the president said it is all fair in politics. But we watched the entire thing, so we can have some kind of context as to his statement. But he did make that statement, didn't he? Do you think he was taken out of context?
Not exactly. I think on that occasion he spoke like a politician rather than a statesman who is already the president of a country. I said this because the leadership and those in leadership position must serve as moral compass for a nation, especially the ones that they govern. And it's important for us to continue to challenge that notion that all is fair in politics, because the only thing that is fair in politics is absolute fidelity to constitutionalism and substantial compliance with Electoral Act, laws or other rules that govern electoral conduct. Anything outside of the legal and the legitimate is not fair. This is because, contrary to the popular narrative out there that some politicians and Democrats, so-called Democrats, try to use to justify the Hobbesian state of our democracy. In a democracy, in a true democracy, power is not taken, it is given. Power is sought peacefully from the people, and the people, if convinced, give it out freely, without intimidation, without inducement, and without the fear of their lives. Or, in some extreme cases, without being excluded from the process of power transaction. So we must redefine democratic transaction in Nigeria from one that states clearly that power is taken and not given. It is given. That was a democracy. you campaign peacefully and ask me for my support for your agenda to govern me, and I should be allowed to give it freely. And in giving it freely, that vote must count. And so when the president made that statement, he didn't speak as a statesman, because as a president, at all times, you must realize that whatever good legacies you leave today in power, you are going to be a beneficiary of that when you're out of power. Power is transient, just 8 years. You lose your immunity, you lose your power, you lose the aura. So you're going to come back as an ordinary citizen to benefit from that, which you help institute in government. And if you do the otherwise, you are likely going to be a victim of the same monstrous structures you put in place while in power. So it is important that after 27 years of democracy, 27 years, those in power today should have realized this. And in their statements, in their conduct, must reflect statemanliness, the type that sees the future, not just the next election. And so it is important, and I'm happy that we are continuously challenging that statement. And if you like, I think the president himself may have realized that all may not necessarily be fair in politics and in election when he decided to go over the board to call the FCC to order in the case of the Osun election, for instance. So it tells you that somehow maybe they are receptive to some of the criticism that have trailed that particular statement, especially when Cardinal Onayeko took his time out of that meeting to go to the media to actually express concern about that statement. So maybe the Onayeko effect is beginning to correct things in the highest office in the land.
You know, that statement actually comes from an older statement: all is fair in love and war.
An election is not war.
And elections.
Election is a love affair.
It's a love affair. It's a celebration.
Yes.
Which brings me to my next question, which has to do with the next elections in 2027. With our very heated polity, there is a trend where people get legitimacy from things said by people in office. Is it too late to turn it around? Should the president maybe say something that counters what he said? Because it does feel like people who are prone to nefarious activities in the political space are drawing some kind of legitimacy from what the president said. They say, well, the president said all is fair in politics. He said that. So for them, anything goes. Should the president say something that retracts that statement so that this legitimacy that people are latching on to carry out crime and criminality drops?
I think he needs to address the country in that respect.
He does.
He needs to address the country to recommit himself as the president of this country to absolute fidelity to constitutionalism, as well as commit himself and his political party, the ruling party, to the effect that they are going to comply 100% with the Electoral Act. And maybe say something similar to what Jonathan said too, when he said, My ambition is not worth the blood of any citizen. The president must elaborate more on that, and from thenceforward, continue at every opportunity to be a moral crusader. A moral crusader. In trying to enlighten Nigerians that power, first and foremost, is for public service. It's not for the privilege alone, but the responsibility that comes with it. Therefore, it shouldn't be a do-or-die affair, and the Nigerians should please conduct themselves, including the politicians, in only ways that can ensure the best emerges in a peaceful, free, and credible electoral process. He must continue to do this up until the next election because he's the president of the country. And on May 29, 2023, he swore the oath. He held on to the holy book of the religion he believes in. He's a Muslim. He held on to the Quran and swore to uphold the letters of that constitution and the spirit behind the letters of the constitution. And if you do an exegesis of our constitution, it simply tells you that power is not taken by force. It should be given freely. So he has a duty to uphold that philosophy at all times. It is a morally bound duty on him as the president who must serve as the moral compass of the Nigerian nation today that he's still the president. And even in politics, there are fundamentals of morality that guides politics, because politics should be for the purpose of ensuring good governance, not within elections. In the most political parties in Nigeria will tell you that the ambition we have is to win elections. And I say, no, that's not the reason you are a political party. You are supposed to be in politics to bring about positive change from within the system. And that positive change should not translate into realizing the vision behind our constitution, which is, if you like, the Nigerian dream, security and welfare for the citizens of the Nigerian people. Therefore, your purpose in government, your purpose in politics is to bring about good governance, not just to win an election. Because you could do your best. You could tick all the boxes. If the people think that they want much more than you have offered, they also have a right to vote you out of power. So you can't insist, for instance, that I have done so well, I must be voted in back. Therefore, the purpose in government is to leave a mark in terms of good governance. And when they have tested another system and they realize that you are better, they can also come back to you and vote you in next time. It happened in Ghana. Mahama lost the election. And after 8 years, he's back in power. Because after 8 years, those who voted against him have felt that maybe he was better than those who voted for. Just let us give him a try. That is how democracy works. But if you make democracy a war affair, even in war, not all is fair. Genocide, for example, is a war crime.
It's a crime.
It's a war crime. Exactly. So there are even criminal activities that even in war you cannot carry out. Therefore, nobody should ever equate an election in a democracy with a war. Even we know today that there are rules and regulations, there are rules of engagement governing warfare.
Oh, yes.
And so you have issues that can constitute war crime. So you have electoral crimes in Nigeria. Anything that is within the purview of electoral crime, violence, voter inducement, voter intimidation, they are not fair and they cannot be fair. For the president to write his name in gold and turn the tide around, he will have to commit, take a conscious decision, and commit class suicide. I made this advice even before he became president. When I said 23 years after democracy, 24 years after democracy in 2023, the signs are clear that Nigeria can no longer sustain the status quo in terms of misconduct of this political class. Signs are there. Nigeria was going broke. Nigeria is fragile. Nigeria is exhibiting mild symptoms of state failure, which, if it goes unchecked, might result into a collapse of the Nigerian state, the almighty Nigerian state.
You know, when you say that, it terrifies me.
But that's the reality we are
because
facing today.
I'm big on definitions of things. A failed state.
Nigeria is very fragile already. Look at the tension every day, everywhere. Look at the micro warfare happening within the Nigerian space. Nigeria is the country at war with itself. Now, look at our kind of politics. Look at the fact that the government is unable to actually provide basic services to citizens and is unable to enforce law and order in all of its jurisdiction. So, territorial jurisdiction. So, these are early warning signs of state failure. Now, there are causative factors for this failure of leadership, essentially, and lack of fidelity to constitutionalism. So, there comes a time in the life of a nation when you are faced with this reality. Those in charge, those that are privileged to be in charge of the state, of affairs, of the nation, will say, look, it is time we become born again. It is time we have a rethinking of our ways. Because it is in our own interests, our self-enlightened interest, to turn a new leaf, substituting personal, partisan, regional, ethnic, religious interest with the Nigerian national interest in the discharge of his duties and responsibilities as not only President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but as the leader of the ruling party. The ruling party has got a responsibility too to provide a pathway on how to be ethical in its conduct. Because the political party system is the brain box of a democracy anywhere in the world. And you will agree with me that in Nigeria is a corrupted brain box we have in the form of political party system in Nigeria. And that has formed the weakest link in our democracy value chain. Because the kind of leaders you have is a function of the kind of political parties you actually run and operate. If we go into 2027 with the status quo, something worse than we have experienced in the previous 27 years is likely going to manifest. that will now force our hands to either do the right thing or survive, or continue along the line we are going and perish.
You just came back from Bauchi at the democracy lecture.
Yes.
We'll talk about that because there were some things that were said at that event that are crucial to where we are going as a country. So we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about that. Please stay with us on Hard Copy. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hard Copy. If you've just joined us, Mr. Majeed Dahiru is our guest tonight. I call him the Oracle, journalist, freelance writer, and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. When I was watching the democracy, it's a Goodluck Jonathan Foundation event. You were there. You were in the crowd there. You were there when former President Olusegun Obasanjo said this Western style democracy we're practicing doesn't suit us. It's like wearing clothes that don't fit. And I've heard him say that before.
Yes.
What I've been asking myself since hearing that is, what does that mean? Do you understand why? Like, what does that? Okay, so it doesn't suit us. Okay, so how do we create ours? What does creating ours? Do we have to do another national conference? Does it go through the National Assembly? Do we do a referendum? What does that mean? What does a Nigerian style democracy mean? What does it look like? What does it entail? Is that something you think about as well? Or do you not agree with him?
Okay, let me say this. President Olusegun Obasanjo is somebody I respect so much. I think it was one of the most iconic leaders we've had, despite the challenges we've had in leadership, both as military head of state and as a civilian president. But when it comes to this issue, he's been talking about for some time, I've always disagreed on principle, respectfully so. I think what we're already practicing is not a Western-style democracy. What we are practicing is actually the Afro democracy Obasanjo is talking about. This is the African style. This is the way we know how to live.
Some people say he brought this style. He taught us this
now,
thing.
let me drill down a little bit. The guest speaker at that event was a professor from Kenya. And he summarized all of my public intervention on this matter in all the years that I've been a public, analyst or writer. He identified the root causes of the problem we are facing. Nigeria, let me emphasize, Nigeria is not practicing Western democracy at all. Nigeria is not practicing democracy at all. What we are practicing is an aberration of a democracy. So the problem is not Western. We will be unfortunate to practicing a Western-style democracy. We are not. And the democracy in the West is not Western-style per se. For me, the democracy in the West is simply a universally acceptable minimum of democratic engagement that can be modified here and there to suit certain peculiarities. But otherwise, the fundamentals are there. Democratic citizenship, equality of citizens, rule of law.
Rule of law.
Except you are saying we have a different species of human beings. There's no country that you practice rule of law, equality of citizens, absolute fidelity to the Constitution, and we'll be having the kind of constitution we're having today. No. Absolute fidelity to the Constitution means you can't steal one naira that does not belong to you. The Constitution prevents you, mandates you not to steal public funds. That you must do everything in line with public interest. That alone, if you're able to abide by that, Nigeria will not be in the state where it is today. But the opposite seems to have been the case. So, for me, we've been practicing Afro-democracy as Obasanjo has been trying to get us to practice. We're already in it, sir. The speaker from Kenya identified rightly the reason why we're having the challenge we have in Africa. Not just Nigeria, Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa especially. Identitarian politics of ethnicity and religion. You see, what you call democracy works for nations that are socially cohesive, that are nationally integrated, and with a measure of national unity. Where there is democratic citizenship and equality of citizenship. Where you don't have indigenous settler dichotomy. Where ethnicity and religious bigotry do not dictate affairs of the state.
Where governors will not sit down and listen to an imam
denigrate half of our population, and we are trying to collapse it irresponsibly. That's not a democracy. If we were a Western-style democracy, by the next day, those governors would have resigned from their positions.
Very true.
While the man in question would have been arrested and charged for incitement to violence amongst many other violent crimes. So it tells you we are not, and this is actually in our laws, but nobody's able to implement them because of the identitarian nature of politics in Nigeria. So that man, because he commands a mob of voters, those governors must go to his temple to pay offering and obeisance to him if they want to win elections. So Nigeria, like many other African countries, have not been able to evolve from country of tribesmen to a nation of citizens that can sustain democratic institutions and democratic culture. So the challenge is we must begin that process of evolution. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian country as currently constituted cannot also sustain any form of governance, including monarchy, including dictatorship. It can't sustain any. I'll give you an example. When people point out China, for instance, they point out maybe the United States of America, Norway, they point out Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries. Some people argue that maybe China is making progress because it's a democracy. I say, no, they're a democracy. The Gulf countries are a democracy too. The same way the United States of America and Norway are also democracies. There is something common to these countries. One thing is common. These countries have substantially transformed from those geographic expressions to nation states.
Where the people are actual citizens.
Citizens. Meaning, and as a citizen, you would desire for a fellow citizen, irrespective of their race or ethnicity or religion, what you desire for yourself. Indeed. And you will stand to do unto them what you would want them to do unto you. So identity politics in Nigeria has yielded a phenomenon called prebendalism, an elaborate pictorial system that is legitimate in nature. In Nigeria, corruption is legitimate. Or let me say, it has a legitimacy problem. Meaning, in other climes, corruption is not legitimate at all. But in Nigeria, it is legitimate.
It's expected.
It's expected. If you don't do it, you will not be considered a good ambassador of the whatever section you come from the country. That's why recently, I keep making this example. A minister, or a former minister rather, wants to run for the governorship of his home state of Gombe. And I'm talking about Sheikh Maltabi here, an Islamic scholar and a professor. I don't know anybody that should be more educated than him. But he has printed a book, and people are not paying attention, where he itemized the hundreds of projects and employment he influenced the Gombe state while he was DG of NITDA and subsequently Minister for Communications. Influence. People do not know that influence peddling is the root of corruption in Nigeria, meaning that for every one job influenced to Gombe, somebody was marginalized in the process. And he's using that to transact for power. And he's getting traction, he's getting the crowd. This is prebendalism at the height of it. The only difference is that he's not so smart enough to have taken responsibility for it directly. Others will do it and not take responsibility, knowing that, okay, this is not really appropriate, but I have to do it realistically to gain political favor. But maybe he was a bit naive not to know that what you are saying, in a sense, is that you are corrupt in power. But it is the norm. Nobody, not even the ICPC, can arrest him for that. Because even those in the ICPC may not understand that this person is a candidate for ICPC. This is classic corruption. But he's not the only one. It is the norm. Everybody is involved. It's called prebendalism. We are appointed and the elected public officials arising from identity politics feel that they have a sense of attachment over their areas of responsibility. Now, we need to flip this around. You know why? What we used to call the national cake has been overshared and overeaten. We're not borrowing to bake new ones. And we're not even patient enough to allow it get ready. We are even eating the ingredients we're borrowing in the process. That's why Nigeria is in a broken state. Nigeria is heavily indebted, cannot pay decent wages to its citizens, cannot provide basic services to its citizens, because those that are supposed to sit down and expand the national cake and make it go round are busy sharing the existing ones, like animals in the animal kingdom.
Plan for this man to be president has been cooking for decades.
Yeah, for more than 3 decades.
More than 3 decades, this has been cooking about how Tinubu will be president of this country. And now that he's here, it does feel like, I don't want it to be another situation where someone is taking off something off a bucket list oh, I was president of Nigeria. No. It is an opportunity because, and I do believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is someone who believes in legacy, believes in glory, and he has an opportunity to tilt the scale, to make us into a country of Nigerians who love Nigeria, a country that works for the people. He has the opportunity to do that now. Do you think he will?
I think he should. He has no choice. Unlike President Buhari, Tinubu fundamentally believes in national unity,
Yes,
at least as a belief system. He may not have demonstrated so much of it. Maybe we feel he should have done more in terms of equitable distribution of appointment. But he's an improvement. He has been a better manager of diversity than his predecessor, no doubt about it. We're saying, for somebody who has this philosophy, he needs to take it a notch higher and put it to practice. Internalize it, mainstream it in governance, and make it a guiding philosophy, such that Nigeria can easily and quickly begin the transition, the necessary transition, first from a country of tribesmen to a nation of citizens. Secondly, a pivotal shift from identitarian politics to true liberal democratic tenets, where power is sought for peacefully and donated, because the reward for true liberal democracy is good governance. While that for identity politics is patronage, it's appointment and contract, nothing anybody can do for you. So we need a shift from this, because the only good governance that can help expand the national cake and enable government to fulfill its primary mandate of providing welfare and security for citizens in a manner that can pull Nigeria far back from the brink of state failure and reposition us onto a path of sustainable prosperity, national unity, peace, and justice for all. Until that is done, President Tinubu may not have much to leave as a legacy in power. And he has the opportunity to do this. He has the intellect, he has the mind to do this. Right. And we're saying this is the time.
Yes.
For this to be done. And he has the golden opportunity to write his name eternally in gold if he does this. I
want to thank you so much, Mr. Majeed Dahiru, for being with us on Hard Copy. Good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you.
That's Hard Copy this week. I'm Kayla Magwa. Good night.